God. I don't understand people. I really don't. It seems like every time I open up Facebook or turn the news on, there's some more insanity that just doesn't seem to make sense. I talk to a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people from all walks of life. From those who don't identify with a gender to those who have dealt with the PTSD situations that I've been through. Those on all sides of the spectrum. And what I have begun to notice more than anything are patterns of human behavior, even in people's words and reactions to triggers on Facebook that upset them. And the more I've studied the brain in the response with PTSD, hey guys, the more I see a lot of patterns emerge. And I'm repping my Michigan Roots shirt today. Finally got my Michigan gear on. But I shared in the title the link to the Very Well Mind article that I'm looking at that talks about human emotions and the emotional response. And like I said, the more I see things and I look at people, I study people. I'm always the person sitting back with my phone, reading at the bar when I was out with my husband while he was wanting me to socialize with people I had no interest in even talking to. I watch people. I watch their behaviors. I watch the patterns. And I got really bored in psychology class, which is why I never went into that aspect. But hey guys, but I see a lot of emerging patterns with behavior and emotional reactions. Folks, I cannot stress enough how important it is. You know, I know we all get frustrated. I know we see things on Facebook that really upset us, but number one, people are looking for that emotional response. When my husband used to try to antagonize me to react, it was so he could point fingers at me and call me crazy and whatever the hell else he wanted to blame me for at the time. When I quit doing that is when things got worse on his end, because he no longer had an outlet or somebody to blame for his behaviors. But I keep coming back to how this relates to PTSD, especially with the fear and emotional reactions. The amygdala is just a tiny little almond-shaped structure within the brain, and that regulates emotions and fear in particular. And people are scared. They're scared right now, whether or not they choose to admit it. You're welcome, guys. They're scared, and they have no way to lash out at an invisible virus. There's just no way. You can't lash out at something that's inanimate. The same thing with PTSD. You know, they lash out at these invisible enemies and the fear. It's fear-driven. PTSD is based and driven off of fear. And I keep coming back to this over and over again in many things that I'm talking about, many things that I'm seeing with human behaviors and reaction. You're welcome. And we really need to start understanding human behavior. And it's almost predictable. It really is. When certain things happen, you can almost predict how people are going to react because it's based off of fear. There's behaviors that are associated with these emotional responses. We have got to quit responding based off of emotional reactions. It is so important to stop. It is okay to walk away from somebody who is having an emotional meltdown on you. You do not need to respond. There's nothing that you're going to say. Number one, telling somebody to calm down when they're upset, we all know isn't going to work, especially if you're a woman. It just makes it worse. So it's okay to walk away. Think about logic. Let the other person calm down, and maybe they're going to start thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't have reacted that way. Maybe I overreacted. And, you know, it felt good to get rid of that hate and that, you know, being upset. You know, there's only 6 basic emotions, and it's okay to walk away. Come back to it. Put the Facebook down. If somebody posts something that upsets you, you have full control of just turning the app off and going to go do the damn dishes. I don't care what you do. Go play in the garden. Go for a walk. because you're going to start thinking of things. And, there's always that, oh, I should have said this and I should have said that. Well, there's also ways to say it. And you can express that, hey, what you said really upset me, but here's why, without being antagonistic. There's a way to do it without attacking somebody. And when you attack somebody, or you are never going to change somebody's mind who's already got it made up. You cannot force your beliefs on somebody else. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You're never going to change somebody. You have to accept that you're never going to change somebody, and that there is a point in time where you just have to walk away from the topic, set your boundaries, and maintain your own level of happiness, because it is up to you to make yourself happy. It is nobody else's job. But human behavior is predictable. You can almost sit there and go, okay, I'm going to say this, and so is going to react this way. The best advice I can give is to just walk away. Put it down. Don't get yourself stressed out, because number one, you're going to increase your blood pressure. My damn notifications turned on, I forgot. You're going to increase your blood pressure. You're going to get yourself upset. Your anxieties, all it's doing is affecting you. And the person that wanted that emotional reaction got exactly what they wanted from you. Just like when you fight with your spouse or your brother or sister or a sibling, whatever. They get that emotional reaction from you. And don't give them that. You're giving them power with words. And that's exactly what they are, is just words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We have to learn to rise above all that and just walk away and set your boundaries. If they cross boundaries, end the conversation. If you can't sit down and talk with somebody rationally and have an actual conversation like people used to do in diners on Sunday morning, the elderly, they love to meet up and talk about things, and they have conversations. We can't seem to do that anymore without invoking some kind of argument. Just because we believe something, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it the only belief. We really have to start respecting each other. I mean, I just cannot believe the hate that I'm seeing. I just cannot keep saying this enough. This is the United States of America, not the divided states of America. I don't care where you fall on party lines. You are responsible for your own behavior. Hey, Linda! But you need to start taking some accountability for your behaviors and your reactions, because it is so easy to sit behind a keyboard and be a damn warrior and say negative things that hurt people with no consequences. They don't take accountability for anything. I mean, we've lost accountability for everything. We have to argue instead of going, you know what? I screwed up. When I fuck up at work, the first thing I do is go find my boss like, hey, I screwed up. I need help fixing this, because I don't need to cover my ass documenting way more than I need to. No. I go get the boss because, hey, I screwed up. It's okay to be wrong. People have got to learn that it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to correct yourself. It's very humbling. It's almost fulfilling when you're able to go, you know what? I can admit when I'm wrong. But to give people power over you with how you react, with the words that they use, you are just giving up everything. If somebody can make you react that way with just words, dear God, I can't imagine what they would do with force. That is power. You are giving up your power with somebody who is probably ignorant to the topic, number one, and doesn't even deserve that power over you. Don't give that to them. And I can't teach this to my children enough. Don't give people that power. I quit giving that power to my husband when I was informed as to what mind games that he was playing and where his train of thought was going. And once I was able to start seeing the forest for the trees and realizing what was going on, you can start predicting behavior patterns. We are probably heading towards a rebound and spike in cases. I'm looking at the news and you can barely hear me. know I was talking quiet in the beginning. Let me know now if you can't, because I noticed when I went back on the video last time, it sounded like I was yelling at the camera. Yes, human behavior. People are going to have to start taking accountability for their behavior after this weekend with what I'm seeing on the damn news. There was a hairdresser out in Missouri who for 2 weeks was practicing, and guess who was positive? No idea how many people she infected. And this is why contact tracing is important and why we're not really trying to invade your homes and plant things in your house to watch you. No, we're contact tracing to find out who people came in contact with so we can notify them to quarantine and to watch for symptoms and watch out for their loved ones that they became in contact with. Stupidity is all over the beaches right now. Obviously, it's really hard to wear a mask when you're in the water. Please don't do that. I don't need you drowning. No. Just after somebody sent me the picture of somebody who made a pacifier mask for a baby, I like lost it. I lost it. And apparently it was shared on another respiratory therapist page. Like they actually shared it. Babies breathe through their nose. They don't breathe through their mouth. They are not mouth breathers. That's why when they nurse, they can breathe. That's why their noses are born. They're all scrunched up to their faces because they're bringing air in that way. Do not plug up a baby's face with any kind of mask or blanket. That's why we don't promote wearing or using pillows and putting blankets in bed with babies anymore. Dear God, I mean, people's logic and reason just went out the window. Our respiratory therapy exams are very comprehensive and very freaking hard. When I went through mine, we had to do 3 separate exams. Now it's 2. And depending on where you fall for the placement, you can sit for the clinical part. But we're not stupid people. But when we do things like that, I just wonder where everybody's logic went. I have no freaking idea what the hell is happening here. Let's see here. Mute this here. We're going to see a spike in new cases, Mark. We are going to see it for a couple reasons. We're going to see it because now there's more tests available. So obviously, because more tests are available, we are going to see a spike in cases. That's a given. But in a few weeks, we're going to see more just because of the situations that are happening this weekend. People are not following directions. And even if they are out in public without a mask, we do want people outside. We do want people socializing. It's an important part of human behavior. We are social creatures. And they're not maintaining that 6 feet of distance. And we have good science as to how far droplets spread now. So even if you're not wearing a mask, you should still be maintaining social distancing. None of that is happening. I mean, WTF. I am trying not to cuss like a sailor because I really just want to cuss up and down now. They had another thing on there that people are now starting to put their antibody test results on their dating profiles. What? Number one, you could still test negative and be positive. You could be asymptomatic. I mean, no test is guaranteed. Each test tells us something different. But now we're going to use it on our dating profile. There's people that have come up with a remote control mask for when you're out eating. So you can push a remote control and it opens the mask so you can insert food around COVID. If your mask is contaminated and you're putting it through your pie hole and you're missing because, you know, it's not natural, you're not used to eating through a hole in a mask, your food's going to be touching the outside of your mask, and how is that even clean? I seen an ad in my Google News feed last night about an N95 made from silicone. It had the little exhalation valves on it. So while it might protect you from inhaling things, it's not protecting the rest of the population from you breathing out particles. I don't know how good of an idea that is. It's probably not been scientifically tested because it's brand spanking new and science. And by the way, Big Red's about the closest thing I can get to a Faygo Red Pop. But people are coming up with their own conspiracy theories, their own ideas, and we don't know what's true or not anymore. I reshared that image from the governor of Michigan. My sister actually had posted that to her page. debunking some stuff that was false. And it's very easy to do a reverse image search. There's actually a spot on Google when you go to your Google search tab, like just the actual Google page. There's one for images. You can copy an image and put it in there, and it will reverse search for you. And you can go back and see everything that that image has been shared in. And sure enough, that was back in 2019 during a tasting at a brewery, but yet it's been attributed to this weekend. The same thing from a picture that my sister had posted from Hurricane Katrina is being used for the floods up in Wixom. There are bad enough pictures out there that we don't need to steal one from Hurricane Katrina. Are people that effing lazy? You know, go get facts. If you can't get facts, then don't make shit up. You know, this is social influence. They're trying to get a response based off of where they're trying to get in their social status. It's just like the people who used to start rumors in high school and middle school about somebody. It was to get attention to themselves, and usually those people are the ones who have the hardest time being happy with themselves and being happy as a human being in general. They have to harass somebody else because it's a reflection of how they feel on the inside, which is another similarity with PTSD. All of my husband's responses and nasty things that he said and did to us wives were a direct reflection of how he feels about himself. And I have it in his own documentation from therapy in the clinic when he was inpatient. If it wouldn't have been for those things and being able to look back reflectively upon all of this stuff, it would have been really hard to understand this. But once I started understanding where his mind was at and doing the research on the brain and how the brain responds, the brain is a very evil organ. You can talk yourself into things and you can talk yourself right out of things just because of how your brain screws with you. And it's just like with eyewitness testimonies. Your brain can change what you actually perceive. The brain is an amazing organ, but it can be used against you in a heartbeat, and you can use it against yourself. And that's what's kind of happening here with predictable patterns of behavior based on emotional responses. And I'm going to share some articles. I know I've shared some of them on my PTSD page, but the more I'm sitting here reading and comparing these things, the more I am realizing that these are normal patterns of behavior. In PTSD, they're kind of intensified by like a million with certain things, like with especially when it comes to fear. The fight or flight response just goes haywire. And there are so many behavioral responses based on emotion that, I mean, psychology is absolutely amazing. And there are all different types of psychological theories. And I mean, I don't need another degree. I really don't. But these all tie in to how people are reacting right now and what you're seeing on your Facebook feed. And when you can take yourself emotionally out of the situation and look at it for what it is, most people are scared. When it comes down to it, most people are scared. And you can either help to remove that layer of fear, or you're not going to change their mind, and there's no sense in working yourself up about it. The best thing you can do is educate yourself and hope to educate those around you. And maybe after a while, when the fear response drops off and people start thinking logically based off of science, things will change. But for right now, I mean, people are just conspiracy theories, and you have to understand the whole clinical picture here. You have to look at all sides of the spectrum to understand where these responses are coming from and why people are reacting the way that they do. You can't just pull one little topic out of a whole big picture and go, bam, right here is my argument. When people have debates, when the presidential candidates or anybody who's having a debate, even the debate club in high school, they look at both sides of the argument and they come up with every possible argument and every possible supporting and, you know, contrary evidence, so that way they can formulate an educated argument instead of just saying I'm right because this is how I say things are. That doesn't hold water. I mean, that's just not going to hold anything. You have to understand all of it in order to make an educated decision, an educated argument. Somebody who doesn't educate themselves on the whole picture is not an educated person, they're an opinionated person. And you really have to take a look at everybody's perspective. Perspective is key. One of the reasons I have so many followers on the PTSD page is because I don't bash my husband. I try to tell this insane story from his perspective as well, to the best of my knowledge, because he's not involved in my life. But because I don't tear him down and hate him for what he's put me through, and I try to be objective when I talk about these things, you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So I have over 7,000 people following my page because I am respectful of what he's been through. I understand, I don't condone his behavior, abso-freaking-lutely not, but I understand where it's rooted and where it comes from. See here, hey, from Texas. It is so, I walked down to the gas station. I actually have a little bit of a tan line here. But it's like 98 degrees. I keep coming up with reasons to go sit outside in this heat and humidity because I'm finding I'm really enjoying it. That's another thing. My husband made assumptions that I hated Texas when I moved here. I was constantly comparing the differences because I had never been west of the Mississippi except for once when I was 7. And I wasn't here long. And I don't hate this place. I was just amazed at the differences. I love it here. I'm not moving out of Texas, much to his dismay. But if he would have listened to what I was saying instead of reacting to what I was saying, then it would have made a big difference in his behavior in regards to the responses that he made towards me. How was the day 2 of Mexican? It's great. It's great. I did just go down to Wing Daddy's. I got wings today because I was craving hot wings. But yeah, my digestive system is handling the green chilies fine, which is great because sometimes I have IBS and sometimes it can get really, really upsetting. But I think my diet has gotten used to the green chilies. I am in Laredo, Sheila. I'm at Laredo Medical Center, and I'm going to tell you what, for those who didn't catch it yesterday, this is COVID done right. They, number one, when I was in the HR office, which I forgot to bring up yesterday, they transferred a COVID patient to, I think, CT or something, and they shut down the entire hallway, and they had security guards at either end, and they cleaned the whole damn hallway behind the transport team. So nobody was allowed out of the offices in that hallway until the hallway had been cleaned and sanitized. Awesome, number one. Number two, the entire unit has been turned into one giant negative pressure room, which a negative pressure room has to exchange the air and exhaust it outside so many times, I think a minute. But the whole unit, they redid the entire ventilation system in the unit, which is a pretty large project to do, to exchange it all outside, so it's not just confined to 1 or 2 rooms like it was at the hospital that I was at. You don't have to drag in a big boxy portable unit to exchange the air, which has to be exhausted. The whole unit was just converted into an exchange. You have to take a shower when you leave the unit. It's not optional, it's mandatory. They provide you with scrubs, they provide you with food so you don't have to leave the unit while you're there. They were bringing us subs from the cafeteria that day shift had left out all day long for night shift and didn't bother to stick in the refrigerator. So on night shift we had soggy old food. They're feeding you, I mean, everything that this place is, new N95s at the beginning of every shift that you work in the unit. You don't have to go argue with somebody in the HR office or the nursing administration office to get fresh PPE. It's given to you freely. You don't have to fight for it. It's freaking amazing. And if everybody could model after these hospitals that are doing it right, we wouldn't have such a high infection rate. That hospital I was at, they weren't even wiping down the wall panels behind, or the bed rails of the patients after they left the beds, after they passed away, for the next patient to come in. Fucking gross. Like, I couldn't even believe it. I had pointed out visible soiled bed rails and a headboard with bright orange sticky Kool-Aid looking stuff on it. And my next patient was laying there in the bed with bright orange, nasty, fermented, sticky Kool-Aid stuff. So if you can't wipe that down, what is going on in some of these hospital rooms. I was absolutely like, I had the EBGBs. I just could not wait to get back to the hotel every day and just shower the funk off of me. But this place here, it's like a whole different, it's a complete 180. This is COVID done right. They are big on the employee safety. They are big on patient safety, everybody's safety, the safety of the community. I mean, responsibility, social responsibility as a healthcare facility. And it's a beautiful facility, absolutely beautiful. I don't know how old it is. I haven't really done any research, but it's absolutely gorgeous inside. I'm going to have to share some pictures because I'm going to need a break from Photoshop because I've gotten through all the setup of the, like, there's so many freaking buttons and tabs on this that I've never used. But now I have to learn about layers and masks, and that's going to be fun. But I'm going to have to share some pictures because it is, Darwinism died out. That's what happened. We need more Darwinism. People are off lockdown, especially in PA. They're traveling and doing Memorial Day weekend just like they would last year, and it's ridiculous. Yeah, you're off lockdown, but you still need to take... Yeah, there's social responsibility involved with freedom, folks. Freedom is never free. There is responsibility that is attached to freedom. It's not just given to you, you know, without some conditions of behavior and responsibility. You don't just get to run rampant like Lord of the fucking Flies and act like a bunch of... Because that's what this is really reminding me of, is a modern Lord of the Flies in the year 2020, with a bunch of children running the country and demanding things and doing things their way. And yeah, that's really what this is reminding me of. It's like every asshole for themselves right now. I can see that people are going to try and abuse the American with Disabilities Act. Wearing a mask is not a disability. It's not. You can't... What? What disability are you claiming over a fucking mask? I mean, there isn't one. Claustrophobia and anxiety, I'm sorry. I've suffered from severe anxiety since I was a kid, and I actually overcame it on my own. I used to do these weird throat noises that my mother used to terrorize me over, but I did it. It was a nervous twitch. I used to rub my fingers and toes together like this in grade school, but I mentally had to overcome those things because my mother wouldn't allow me to go to therapy because she didn't want people knowing her business. And I had to hide things with my husband with the PTSD because we weren't allowed to talk about these things because it's like Fight Club. You don't talk about it. I was on anxiety medication for freaking years. When I first started Xanax, I was on 4 milligrams a day. I used to fall asleep at the hair salon. They would beg me to wake up and read a magazine or something. But once I got into meditation, and meditation is not something that you try once or twice and decide it doesn't work and then give it up. You really have to want to overcome these problems with meditation, and anxiety is all in the mind. Your mind creates anxiety. You can get, this is where the brain is an evil organ, and you do have the ability to overcome this. You have to want to, without drugs. I don't like taking anything other than the medication I need for pain, and even then, I'm too lazy to roll over and grab my purse and take my meds so I can move until I get back surgery. But I have gotten off of almost every medication. Meditation has saved my life in more ways than one. I learned it in the inpatient psychiatric unit after my drastic suicide attempt, trying to jump out of a vehicle at 70 miles an hour to get the hell away from my husband because he was so fucking evil. That inpatient stay was like a vacation for me. He was getting mad because I wouldn't call him. I was calling my ex and my father and my daughter and, you know, everybody but him because I didn't want to talk to him because of what he incited in me. But once I learned what was going on and how to control my emotional response, life got a lot easier. And it got easier and easier with more practice at meditation. And I'm telling you, meditation and mindfulness, it'll help you rise above all this shit right now. Center yourself. Anxiety is about living in the future, and depression is about living in the past. Meditation is about right here, right now, and focusing on grounding yourself on right now. You don't need to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow because just like with a global pandemic, plans change. You can't change what's in the past, nor can you hold somebody's past over them. They are allowed to evolve and grow and change. You have no right to hold somebody's past over them. They are allowed to grow. You cannot live for the future because we are not guaranteed the future. We can wake up tomorrow and things might not be here. Just like the folks that went to bed in central Michigan, they're waking up without a house and now they have to plan life all over again. But maybe they went to bed worrying about something that they're not going to be able to change. What was that worry for? You're causing yourself increased heart rate. You're causing yourself high blood pressure because you're stressing yourself out. When I left my toxic situation, I had gotten up to 183 pounds. When I look back at the security video of what I looked like just a few days before my husband and I split up, I could not believe the weight that was around my midsection, and I couldn't get rid of it. Do you know what fell off of me in the first 45 days after we separated with no effort? All that toxicity, because your body holds on to it. It holds on to fluids, it holds on to waste. That's what it does in response to stress. I talked to a woman who started following my PTSD page back when I first created it, and she went through hell with her husband too, soon to be ex-husband. But by me sharing my story and her having somebody to talk to that could relate, her divorce papers were signed and submitted just a few weeks ago. She can't believe the difference in her life, and even her soon-to-be ex-husband, his whole behavior towards her has changed because she took his power away. Now he's wanting her to do the things that she was asking him months ago to pay attention and listen. Well, now the tables have turned. It's predictable human behavior. I told her that you're going to see these same things happen. And he's going to eventually turn it back around on her and make her the bad guy because that's what they do with these conditions. But the toxicity, she's already starting to see the weight loss. She's already lost 20 pounds and she's only been gone a month. Your body holds on to this, even if you don't realize it. If you're not losing weight and you're on a diet and you're exercising, you need to look at your lifestyle. Are you stressed out? Are you living a life high in stress? If the answer is yes, you need to start meditating and you need to start reducing your stress level. And that might mean cutting some toxic people out of your life. That's okay because they're toxic relationships and you don't need them. Set your boundaries, start worrying about yourself and making that mind healthy, because the brain produces cortisol when it's under stress, and cortisol can have a lot of negative effects on the body. It's really important, and meditation can do so much, but you have to work at it. It is not something you can just throw away. If somebody's so anxious and they're just a wreck, look at their lifestyle. Look at how they're living. Look at the choices that they make. They are living a life high in stress and everything bothers them. Everything. From the only thing I can't stand is somebody clicking a pen in a classroom when I'm trying to substitute teach. I will take the pen away. But, when my son began to get very hyperactive, I just started to tune things out. As a parent, we tune a lot out. But when you just learn to filter all that extra noise out and not let it get to you and not have that emotional reaction, the response from your body is a very positive and healthy one. And you start to notice these changes within yourself. Yes, you see Sour Patch Kids. Yes, these are my favorite candy, like ever. My sister and I love Sour Patch Kids and Swedish Fish, and I'm partial to the red ones. I can just eat all red ones. Sour Patch Kids. So tired of lies. Yeah, the best thing to do when you see the lies and conspiracy theories is there's a report button on Facebook. Use it. Report it as fake news. Report it as spam, because I got 30 days in Facebook jail because I reshared a funny ass meme that just said, the election's canceled, you're stuck with Trump for 4 more years. I got hit with interfering with an election or census. So I don't share that shit anymore just because it's all automated now and the robots are taking care of it. So if there's certain trigger words, they will flag it and they'll just pull it off of Facebook. Just use that report button. That is the best thing you can do. I report shit all the time silently. I don't need to comment to it. I just report. and let Facebook deal with it. That's what their robots are for. Reverse lookup. So if you go to google.com, hang on, let me pull it up with my slow ass, soon to be not slow ass laptop. I can't wait for this new one to come. The 30th. You can do, this one's not pulling it. There's, up in the right hand corner is a button called Images, and there's a little camera that pops up. So if you pull open your Google tab, look up in the corner, it says Images next to your profile picture. And then you can click on the little camera and you can search by image. So if somebody has stolen, I've gotten so many wonderful, glowing, hey, darling, you're beautiful messages from people who have seen my videos on Facebook. And I'm sure I'll get yet a freaking another one from somebody who has stolen a soldier's picture. I have so many stolen soldier pictures, phony Facebook accounts. And the number one thing is, oh, I don't have much on my Facebook because of my job. Okay, I was married to a retired command sergeant major. Bullshit. He was special forces. He just watched what he put on Facebook. But you can search those pictures, dating profiles. If somebody has stolen somebody else's picture, the first thing you want to do is do a reverse image, and you can upload the image to that little area. On a mobile phone, it's a little bit different, but it'll still say Images, and you can upload the picture even easier than you would be able to, because on a computer, you obviously have to save it to your desktop or wherever and then upload it to the Google search. But on your cell phone, you save it to your phone, it's right there to search. And it will pull all instances of that picture, where it's been used in Twitter, where it's been used on Facebook, dating profiles, anything public or anything out there. Google is awesome. So yeah, you can search Google Images, and yeah, it's kind of hard to notice up there in the right hand corner, but you just click on that. Well, actually now they have a URL function. You can copy the URL, which you just go up to the browser, copy and paste it in there, or you can upload the actual image. So I haven't used it a lot because I search in different ways, and plus I have a Google Pixel phone. So I can use just what's on my screen and it will automatically search it. I have the Google Lens. I can take a picture of something like a landmark and it will do its magic and pull up all sorts of stuff on it. So always do a Google image search, because here's the thing about pictures, folks. There are so many memes. There's so many pictures in history of U.S. presidents that have been photoshopped back in the day. Because the president couldn't stand up. The one that was president in 1918, I am terrible at history, but they just had the image posted on the news yesterday about how that president had had a stroke, and they actually did a Photoshop of him standing up when in fact he wasn't even strong enough to stand up, but they had to portray that. So even all the way back in 1918, we were photoshopping shit to influence the public eye. And when we make memes, it is a snapshot of a situation we were not there for. We have no idea what happened, but yet we can caption a meme and make it influence anything that we want, because it seems to depict that, even if we weren't there for the actual story. You can... Patty, you can connect to that. It's called Journey of a Combat Veteran Spouse. I'm not sure if my profile links to it or not, but it is on there. It's as soon as I get off my Facebook jail restrictions, I can change the name of the page. It will be Journey of a Combat PTSD Spouse, because that is the name of my LLC. So as soon as I can change it, I will. But I'm still in like Facebook restriction jail. So I can't make any of those changes right now. But currently it's called Journey of a Combat Veteran Spouse. And I post a lot of things to do with PTSD. I got a lot of videos. I'm still trying to work on getting through the book Unspeakable Mind by Dr. Shaylee Jane. Beautiful book on PTSD. And it's not just about combat veterans. It's about PTSD as a whole and how the brain works. And when you hear these things and then you see people's reactions now, there's a lot of similarities and things begin to make more sense. Let's see here. I learned today because Misty mentioned is Google. How do I? Yep. Yeah, or you could do that. Aw, Joanna. I didn't convince her. She convinced herself. I just gave her facts to arm herself with. Yes, I cannot get over the weather here. I have been a Michigan girl, born and raised, and I love my snow. I love to ice fish. I love all the winter weather things, but being out in the desert for 3 years definitely changes a girl. I don't want to be in the freezing cold weather anymore, especially when it's overcast and freaking dreary 90% of the time. Why do you think so many people are passing away so fast in Brazil? Well, I don't know about the way of life in Brazil, but the Latino and Hispanic culture and also the African American races are at high risk already. So in those areas, you have a lot of Latinos. So they're already at high risk. And I don't know what their healthcare infrastructure is like down there. I don't know about their vaccinations. So there's a lot of things that could play into that. They're having spikes possibly because they're not following social distancing or wearing masks or any of those things. I have not read the research because I have not had time trying to learn these Adobe programs. I can't wait to have 2 laptops, one to play the instruction videos and the one to do the actual work on. Things will go much faster after the 30th. But for now, I'm getting everything set up and I'm going to learn about layers and masks, which are going to be the hardest part. And I need to learn those for Adobe Illustrator anyway to create the graphics that I want to create to transfer over to my machine to do the vinyl cutting. So it's all going to integrate, but I'm doing something I have never done before. Big surprise. I don't know too much about it. Hey, Gail. Yes, there's a huge difference in hospitals, Diane. Even when I left El Paso, my employer there, they were taking our used N95s and sterilizing them and building us a stockpile in case we had to begin to use them because we ran out. We had a resource. They weren't making us reuse them. They were creating a stockpile of their own and being resourceful and being proactive. And they were taking temperatures outside of the building. This hospital is taking temperatures. The one I was at in New Jersey, nope. I got swabbed the minute I walked in the door, man. I mean, that's my first COVID test. And here I am in the face of COVID in New Jersey, and they don't give a crap at that hospital. I mean, all of these were red flags, and I don't care how much money you're paying me. Safety first. Safety, 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 safety. Not only does it keep me safe, it keeps my coworkers safe, and it also keeps the patients who are not affected by this safe. And I'm a Joint Commission queen. I follow the guidelines because they are there for a reason. They're not there to make our lives difficult. They're there to keep the patients safe. And if we're not following the guidelines, the patients aren't safe. I just got here. Did you see the pics of people in the Ozarks? I did not. I'm afraid I don't want to. I've already seen pictures of assholes at Yellowstone standing too close to each other and the rangers having to separate them, not wearing masks. But the rangers were wearing masks like intelligent human beings. Ohio's, 2 parties. Yeah, these are going to be... We are going to have another influx in healthcare. And I'm going to tell you what, we're tired already. 1 month on the front lines is like 3 months of stress and hell. And a lot of these hospitals are working like back-to-back-to-back shifts. One girl I had seen that was an RT that had went out there had worked like 20-something days straight. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, how about a day of rest? Like, seriously. If you're not sleeping, your immune system is going to become compromised. Why would you work somebody like that to death? We all chase the money to pay the bills, but I'm telling you, money is not everything, and people need to quit being greedy. And if a facility is asking you to work like that, they don't have you and your health in their best interests. My friend has pulmonary fibrosis and lupus. She can't wear a mask. That's understandable. That's understandable. And she'll even wear one. Oh my God. Like, this woman's a trooper. And for anybody who doesn't know about pulmonary fibrosis, what it does is it's a severe scarring in the lungs. So it's like trying to breathe through a brick. If you imagine like scar tissue on the outside after a really nasty burn and how thick and gnarly it gets, imagine trying to push oxygen and carbon dioxide through that. You can't. And I have so many doctors when I was at my last hospital in El Paso that would not understand the idea of air hunger. And I mean, I had these people with respiratory rates upwards of 80 breaths per minute because they just couldn't breathe. They were panting so hard, and they didn't want to give them morphine to help relieve that air hunger because they were afraid of depressing a respiratory drive on a person who's breathing at 80 breaths a minute. This is where residents drive me crazy with medical school and their lack of knowledge on conditions. But they would come to me, and you can't treat pulmonary fibrosis. The only option is a lung transplant. You can put somebody on oxygen, but it's not going to help because it can't diffuse through those tissues. And it's like breathing through nothing but lungs of thick, nasty scar tissue. So you're suffocating to death very slowly. And I think the worst death for me to watch next to COVID is somebody with pulmonary fibrosis, because they're literally suffocating in front of you because their carbon dioxide levels are rising and they're not getting oxygen. So they go into what we call CO2 narcosis, which they're going to narc out eventually. I'd rather it be on morphine than carbon dioxide and suffering. But it is the most painful death to watch. And there's nothing you can do. You can't make them more comfortable. You can't do anything. And that's about how you feel dealing with COVID patients, because there's nothing you can do to make it better. You can't get the oxygen through those tissues because it's just not going to happen. It's impossible to do. And if that person is willing to wear a fucking mask, I mean, she deserves the Patient of the Year award, #1. And then the lupus on top of that causes lung problems. And if they're willing to wear a mask, somebody who is screaming about claustrophobia and whatever, learn to breathe, do some mindfulness, put the fucking mask on, and think about your health. And if this person with pulmonary fibrosis can wear that goddamn mask to keep themselves healthier for a little bit longer, as they slowly suffocate to death, the rest of the population can probably do it too. I'm sorry. That woman is freaking amazing. Joanna, you give her a huge elbow bump for me, since hugging is not socially distant right now. But she deserves freaking a gold medal for that. I've lost an entire person in weight when my ex left. Yeah, I did too. Lost a couple 100 pounds. I've definitely taken that second chance and it's time to enjoy life. And when somebody like causes you that much of a toxic environment in your life, you really have to question what your priorities are. Is it you? Do you care about yourself, or do you just care about what other people think? And I shared a quote today by Deepak Chopra. What other people think of you is not your business. If you start to make that business your business, you will be offended for the rest of your life. Think about that. Think real hard. It's none of your business what people's opinions are of you. You are the only one living your life, and you do it to make you happy. You're not making other people happy. You are the only one living your life. People are not walking miles in your shoes. They do not understand. I get told all the time, you need a husband. No, I freaking don't. I am more than happy to be on my own. I have always loved my solitude with my cats. I'm dismissing my furry animals here. But I have become comfortable in my own skin. I am comfortable by myself. I don't want to have to answer to anybody, explain my odd, weird behaviors to other people. I don't want to have to do that. It was bad enough with my husband because he took everything personally, like it was something to do with him and nothing to do with how I feel. I mean, the hell with how I feel as a person. But these are my own habits, and I just don't like sharing my space with other people. I don't want anybody in my house. I don't have people over. I called my buddy today. I took the couch that my husband was giving away to his son when I left, so I had something to sit on. I've never used it. I've been gone over a year. My dad sat on it a few times when he was there, when he could find a place to sit, because it's a catch-all for my crafts. I called my buddy and I'm like, can you do me a favor and find somewhere for that couch to go? I want more crafting space. How much do you want for it? Dude, I will pay you to get rid of it. Just get it out of my house before I get home. Please. You know, that's what makes me happy. Having an art studio from top to bottom in my house, that's my happy place. You know, that's what makes me happy. I don't have to explain that to somebody. I don't have to share that, and I don't want to. But it's okay to do what you want to do. You do not have to make other people happy. Oh, thank you, Marjorie. I've seen you here before. Yes, I'm seeing you guys are even making friends with each other and sharing personal stories and other information that's helpful. And that's what I want to see facilitated, you know, helpful things. Things that are beneficial to other people. Of course, I can't post a picture in the comments right now. Damn it. But I lost weight too after I left a relationship of major stress. See, the body holds on to toxic things. Swedish fish are awesome. Yes, the report button. If you can't find it, just go to the little dots next to the post, because there is a find and report. That's the only way to report anything, because you can't get a human being on Facebook. God forbid somebody bullies you and harasses you and is using your own personal image to make nasty memes about you, and then you share them and get reported and it gets dinged against you. But that person who made it, it's okay. My stalker, Nancy. Yeah, this woman's a freaking twat waffle. I can't wait for court. Ooh, oral surgeon on Thursday. I bet he was very, very, very nervous. I've heard from a lot of dentists. They're very, very, very anxious right now. Please be nice to your dentist. I hate dentists. I have a lot of oral problems myself, but they are very, hey, Woody, are African Americans and other minorities predisposed? I don't think you would be predisposed to the disease itself. What they are predisposed to is the complications that arise from it, with the cardiovascular problems. People with high blood pressure, cardiac problems, and obesity are predisposed to the complications. I don't think I had one Caucasian person on the ventilator where I was at, but I was also at a very low-income hospital that served like a homeless population and whatnot. But I don't think I had a single Caucasian person on there. It was all Latinos and African Americans. And some of these guys did not have pre-existing problems, like the 19-year-old and the 39-year-old that I took care of. But they, because of their race, they're predisposed genetically. It's in their genetic makeup to have cardiac problems. So when they went into a state of oxidative stress, it was worse for them. So I wouldn't say that they're just going to get COVID easier. They're going to get complications from COVID easier. How do you explain herd immunity to someone? Okay. Let me see if I can find my notes on herd immunity, because I've already got this all written down. I just got to find it. Give me just a second. Right here. So herd immunity describes a state where a population, usually of people, it doesn't need to be people, it can be animals or whatever, is sufficiently immune to a disease that the infection will not spread within that group. So with mumps, for example, if a population is entirely vulnerable, like there is no vaccines, there is no immunity, no nothing, one infected person will pass the disease on to 10 to 12 people, okay? If nobody is immune. So without vaccination, if 95% get infected over a period of time, 5% won't get it because everyone else is immune and there's nobody else to catch it from. Okay, you can increase the number of immune people by vaccinating. It makes the vaccine people immune to the infection, but stops infected people from passing the disease to everyone because there's nobody left to pass it to. If enough become immune, it stops the spread of the disease. So with mumps, you need 92% of the population infected to get herd immunity. With the flu, I think it was 50%. But the problem is with this, we don't know what that number is. It could be, this is a good way to explain, okay, the numbers that you're seeing on TV with all the death rates, those are case fatalities. That's the number of cases and the number of fatalities. What in actuality, the number that we really need right now is the infection fatality rate. How many people in the population were infected, and then how many died? Because if, for example, let's see here, where is the note on this? So, where is it? I had it all written down. Say that you had a very low number of people infected. Damn it, I had this written down in a very easy to explain way, because I always lose my train of thought with this. Give me a second, I gotta read through my notes. It needs 70%, 70% infected, isn't it, prevention? Okay, let me try this. My math might be wrong. I always have to write math down. Say that you had like 30% people infected with the number of deaths. You would have a lot higher number of an infection fatality rate. If you had 70% of the population infected with that exact same number of deaths, that means the infection fatality rate is a lot lower. But without knowing the population that has been infected, we don't know what the infection fatality rate is, and we can't figure out what the herd immunity level is. So we really need people to get tested and to get a sample of the population. So when you do a study and you do statistics, you have to get a population sample. There's a certain number of people that you would have to get within a population to be able to accurately reflect those numbers. So it would be a really good thing if 70% of the population was exposed and we had the number of deaths that we do. But if a very low number of people have actually been infected and we still have these high numbers of deaths, that's not a good thing. That means we have a very high infection fatality rate, and this is even more deadly and contagious than we thought. So without having all these numbers and doing this math, we can't go off of the crap that's on the TV, because these are just reflecting the cases. What we need is infection fatality rate to be able to determine what the herd immunity level is. But without those numbers, we can't do that. And I did see an article, I don't know how accurate it is, about Sweden let people go out and they removed all these restrictions and then they had a higher number of people dying. It backfired. It wasn't the herd immunity that they were looking for. So things didn't work out the way they were supposed to. Hello from Westland. Thank you, Wanda. Manitoba, no new cases for What's your weather like up there, Vanessa? Is it still pretty cold? There's a lot of Michigan folks in here. Oh, thank you, Darren. My mom always said no man is better than the wrong man. It's true. Same thing with women. No woman is better than the wrong one, because there are toxic relationships all the way around. Lone wolf is so much better than being reliant. I see, I've always been Miss Independent. I went to school for heating and cooling. I did automotive and welding. I can cut a truck apart with the oxyacetylene torch, no problem. Love it. Great stress relief, by the way. My daughter is a union electrician. I've raised children to be able to take care of themselves because that's how mom is. It's great to have the freaking help. Don't get me wrong. I would love not to crawl into an engine when it's 100 degrees outside and be coated in motor oil and grease. But if I have to do it, I have changed a flat tire on the side of a Texas road because down here, your 55,000 mile tires turn into 30,000 ones real quick with the heat on the pavement and eats through your rubber, which makes it easier to pop holes in your tire when you run over stupid shit in the road. But I have 2 pictures from last summer with me changing. I changed a tire on the way back from my wedding vows with my husband and my father in the car. 100 and something freaking degrees outside in Arizona, and I was standing out there teaching my stepson how to change a tire properly. Not screaming and hollering at the tire. Like, I really wanted to have an adult temper tantrum, but that would have just made me hotter and have solved nothing, and I can change the tire pretty damn quickly and just get it done. But emotional reactions don't help in situations like that. But it's always best to be able to be very knowledgeable in many things. Do steroids as a prednisone make... They can, but we don't withhold them in the right patients. If a patient indicates that, you know, if they need a steroid, we are going to give it. And the study about the NSAIDs with France and the WHO, they have retracted their statements about ibuprofen. You can find that in a Google search. I have shared them on my RT Says What page. You can go back and look. Those have been retracted, and we do give steroids when they're indicated. We are not going to withhold them. I needed to hear all of this today. Aw, Kimberly. Friend told me. Yeah, there's all sorts of different domestic violence situations too, folks. It doesn't always have to be physical. It can be verbal and mental, which my husband, he was trained in interrogation. He knows how to fuck with people's minds, and that was his coping mechanism to not deal with his problems and admit to, you know, he's a soldier, a retired CSM. I mean, he's got to be the manly man. There's nothing wrong with him. It's got to be everybody else. And he just could not admit that he could possibly be the problem. And now his daughter's been suicidal. She's been cutting herself before we even got into a relationship. I didn't cause those problems. He's putting all that stress onto his daughter, who's going to be 14 in September. That child's been cutting herself since 5th grade. I mean, these are the effects that our children see when we are in abusive situations. So our kids are going in the closet and hiding their pain and harming themselves because of what we're putting them through as parents. We are both responsible. You know, you have to get out of those toxic situations. The young lady that I helped encourage and motivate to see that things can be better and that there is an out, it like landed in her lap one day. It's like she was given an easy exit and a very peaceful one that, you know, her kids were a little bit resistant at first, but they have been through hell. And her husband was a real asshole. This woman has a lot of health problems and has to go to the hospital when they're flared up, like ASAP, to get steroids and treatment, and he was willing to let her lay there and die, you know. And now it's, you know, because of the way the mind works with PTSD, he's flipping the script and now he's needing attention. Imagine that, you know. But that's the things that happen. But our kids are negatively affected by these things, and we are seeing kids at younger and younger ages suicidal. I mean, there was a gentleman whose son just killed himself over that freaking video game controller that he threw into this monitor like 2 or 3 times. And he just couldn't deal with the pain of the trouble he could get into, and he killed himself rather than being able to face what he had done. And that's sad, and that's not the kind of parent that a father had, but that's how the kid felt. And they don't have control over their emotions, especially at 12, 13 years old. They are a hormonal basket case. And man, we're putting our kids through so much, and we're putting so much on their plate. And my husband is what they call, he's doing what's called emotional incest. And I know it sounds like a bad word and a really perverted one, but it's not. But it's where the parent puts all of their adult baggage and their responsibilities onto a child. And that child feels the responsibility to take care of their parent. And that is what my stepdaughter does. When she fought with me, it's, I want my dad back. I want him to myself. You know, those were the fights that she had with me that my husband didn't see. And of course, she denied that they happened, but they did. I can't just make this crap up if I tried. But that's what the kids are being put through. They are being forced to grow up faster and faster these days, and they no longer, there's the end of a childhood innocence happens at a very, very young age now, and they are expected to grow up and be adults, and we really have got to help them work through their emotional reactions, encourage them to seek help when they're feeling out of sorts, and not hide these things, because the child suicide rate is out of freaking control. I mean, I cannot believe how many kids contemplate suicide and commit suicide over things that are very easy to solve and handle, but they don't have the tools to do it. It's really scary. Oh, see, you've made friends. That's awesome. Hey, Melinda, I hope things are going well for you. She's one of my old high school friends. My oral surgeon down here on Friday was very lax and business as usual. Some staff were wearing masks, some weren't. Some, what? Oh my God, I don't think I'd be in that oral surgeon's office, Emily, because the lady I did the video podcast with, her dentist was nervous as hell. And I've talked to 2 dentists from Michigan who were scared as hell to go back to work and were asking for advice from me. And they're the doctor, you know, and oh my God, if they're not following those, I mean, that's an aerosol generating procedure. Wow, don't think I'd be going back there. See, there's so many survivors on here and so many people who have been through trauma. Are you finding that you have more male? Yes, I am. I did have a few female patients, but my male patients far outweighed the women. And I forgot to bring some of this up. I want to turn this damn lamp on. Let me turn on the one behind me. It reflects off the phone and you can't see. They are doing hormone therapy on men. And I brought this up briefly in that long-ass video that I did in the very beginning. Trying to find it. Hydroxychloroquine. I don't know where I wrote it down at. It's in here somewhere, but they are doing hormone therapy with some of the men because they are finding that there is some hormone relationships, and I can't remember what they were. I'm gonna have to look this up again. But I have talked about it with a couple people, and even at the hospital that I was at, there is a relationship with hormones. So being a woman with female hormones helps to give you a little bit of an edge with this. And I can't remember what it was. I've written down so much. The remdesivir, that was also released again. There was a lot of backlash about them changing the trial length, but it was because the virus had changed its behavior and they needed to change what they were looking at in the study, and there was a whole bunch of crap about that and how it was a big conspiracy, and I've shared that on my RT Says What page. But the remdesivir, they finally released the actual results of the study like they had intended to do at the end of this phase, and they did. And once again, you know, it had showed that it had decreased the length of stay and improved the outcome from like 15 days without it to 11 days with it. But they're not finding it's helping with patients who are severely in distress with the respiratory problems, and that it's working in the worst of patients. You really have to get it into the system when it's mild, when like the first onset of symptoms. I wish I could find where I wrote this down at. I'm gonna have to, somebody remind me in a message if you don't see me post anything about it in the next couple days about the hormone relationship, because I don't remember where I wrote it down at, but Very, very, very good question. See, you guys help remind me of things. Is there a website where you can follow? You can, the FDA has all the clinical trials because they're in charge of all that. You have to report to the FDA, and they're the ones who authorize the clinical trials. You should be able to just go to the FDA website and look up clinical trials. I will see if I can find the direct link, and I will post it to the RT Says What page. I'm hearing the antibody test, they let us, there's more notes on this. I've written all these down. The antibody test can let us know a couple things because it releases two different types of antibodies. There's the initial infection antibody that's released, and then there's another one that is released during a chronic state. The problem is it doesn't let us know, if it's an active infection or not. So you don't know if you're symptomatic or if you're contagious or any of these really important things. The antibody test is to get an idea of the population infection. There's a lot of false negatives with both. The best thing to do is to swab for an active infection, but also it depends on how they're doing the test. I shared this information yesterday because of the way that your body breaks down the virus as it's fighting it. If you do the swab and it gets a piece of the RNA from the virus that is broken down, you can still test positive even though you are not in an active state of infection. It's from what your body has killed off in the virus, but because of the RNA and the type of test that is done with the replicative test, you can still test positive, and that is why we are getting so many positive tests even after, people are not showing symptoms. It's because of the RNA and the type of test that's being done. So we really need to come a long way with these tests, and we need to develop a better way to do these things. There's so many things that could go wrong, and there's so many different ways to do this that I will share the video. And actually, I think I shared the study yesterday. I did. I shared the study. It was done, I think, over in Korea. And it explained, the whole process and why people are still testing positive. It's kind of wordy, but if you read like the discussion part of a study, it'll break it down a lot easier for you. If you try reading all the methods and all that stuff first, you're going to be like, I have no clue. When you look at this stuff, you actually read journal articles out of order. So you can read the abstract to get an idea what it's about, but then you can go down to the discussion and read what the findings were, and then you can go back and reference all the facts. But go to my RT Says What page. It's one of the first ones there. I think it was published in The Lancet, and I did put a notation on top of there. I share a lot of the information on the RT Says What page. I did share it on my personal Facebook page yesterday as well. I did answer the prednisone. We do give it. If it's indicated, it's indicated. Steroids have an effect on the body that aren't always desirable, so we try to not give them in certain situations, but if they're warranted, we do give it. We don't just give it as a blanket to everybody, though. How does this infection spread so fast? Because it is highly contagious, and it has it's spread the same way as the flu, but it rapidly reproduces inside the body. Those little spore thingies that you see, those little spikes, when it gets into the lungs and it attaches, and it replicates like freaking crazy. It just like overtakes the body and creates this huge cytokine storm. And most people with the flu at least start showing symptoms. We have a lot of people who are infected with this who are not showing symptoms, and that's what happened with the nursing homes. Is caregivers were going in, visitors were going in, healthcare workers were going in, and this is before we knew the behavior patterns of the virus. So all these things were happening and people were asymptomatic, but still carriers of the virus. With the flu, you're starting to feel the symptoms. I mean, it's got a very, very short incubation time, like 1 to 3 days. This has got a 10 to 12 day incubation period before we're even seeing symptoms. So it's like sneaking up on people. And we are walking around for up to 2 weeks in contact with everybody before we even realize that we're sick. And by the time you realize that you're sick, it is done too freaking late. And who the hell remembers what they did 2 weeks ago and who they were in contact with? So you can't even get a hold of somebody to go, hey, I was infected. You might want to, you know, check yourself out. Let me see if this is metal. I need to turn this light on. Nope, not metal. Damn it. So with us not knowing in the very beginning about the behavior patterns of this virus and what to look out for and to social distance and to wear a mask and wash our hands obsessively, now we know these things. And with the flu, you're not walking around for 2 weeks without symptoms. It's just not. And this is another reason why it's not like the flu. And it's highly contagious because of that. Let's see here. Hot in Phoenix. Sorry, what? No, you're not asking too many questions. Questions are good. 89 in Northwest Ohio. Okay, so it must just be a warm stretch here because, that's right, I wasn't going to have my children growing up thinking that was how you treat people. Yes, because that's what kids learn, what we show them, and it's very important. Hey, Tony, not to be in toxic situations. I don't know if it's just the attitude in East Texas or what. Most here are oblivious to the severity of the situation. Procedure is done, so I think it's our relaxed attitude here in Texas, but the healthcare staff here in Laredo has got it right, thank God. My employer in El Paso, they were proactive. Now the employees are another story. I shared the comment from my former coworker that I got in April about being a scaremonger, and now look at my city of El Paso. It's the people, it's the culture. Yeah, look up the hormone therapy. I'm gonna have to, let me write this down. Let me write myself a note. Because I didn't touch too much on it, and I've talked about it a few times at work with people. Valley fever and no adrenal glands. Mark, the one girl that I actually helped motivate to leave her toxic situation, she doesn't have any adrenal glands, and that's, now thanks, see, you reminded me of why she needs to go get steroid infusions all the time, because of not having any adrenal glands. So when she comes down with things, she has to go to the hospital like ASAP. And your adrenal glands are very, very important. Valley fever, and you must be down in like the southwest area, correct? I'm deeply sad about the almost 100. Yeah, I mean, and they're getting ready to go higher because of these a-hole-like behavior that we're seeing on the news right now. In 2 weeks, we're going to see these numbers spike, and we're going to have more deaths. I mean, it's good that people are getting outside, but stay away from each other, and if you have to be in close contact, put on a damn mask. Just not on a pacifier. I think a lot of the confusion is because this is brand new. Nobody had the ultimate, no, and there still aren't ultimate answers. I mean, the CDC has changed their guidelines so many times that people don't think that they can trust them anymore. I don't know if I can deal with this light being on. Let me know if this damn light, maybe if I move this up, will it stay? No. We'll try. I can't see. I'm blind. I don't know if it's blinding you, however. Yeah, yes, and the rules keep changing, and as time goes on and we settle into a routine with this and people get used to the new norm, because life is never going to go back to the way it was before this. If you remember SARS, when SARS had that huge outbreak in China and people were wearing bra cups as masks, and you can still find them on Wish, by the way. And don't shop on Wish. Everything comes from China, and we're not trying to support China no more. We're trying to support America. But, I mean, that's where that whole thing came from, was to protect themselves. That was like a new norm for them. They were prepared with masks because a lot of them have them laying around because of situations exactly like that. They live on top of each other there. There are so many millions of people there. It is ridiculous. So that's the way they live. That became their new norm. Oh, I see lightning. So, you know, this is the way that the American people are going to have to learn how to live, because we're not going back, guys. You can resist change all you want, but, you know, we're not going back that way. People yeah, they forgot science. Yes, exactly. My daughter is having deviated septum surgery on Wednesday. She had her COVID test today, and we are definitely quarantining her and myself home alone after this holiday weekend. Do you think the surgical facility is doing everything it can to be safe? I hope so, is the only answer that I can give. I mean, if they have policies and procedures in place, I mean, it is not completely without reason to ask them to obsessively wash their hands every time they come into a room with you. They think that the lady who got COVID and her husband acquired it from my hospital during a routine surgery. Well, whether that's true or not, I don't know. They had only been a few places, but all it takes is one little slip up and not being careful, and somebody can bring it into the home. So it could be any number of things. We are doing everything we can to prevent these things from happening. I would ask them what they're, you know, you are not without reason to ask them what extra steps are you taking to ensure that people are not being infected? What are you doing in the OR? What can you do to reassure me that what you're putting me through is safe for me? I would definitely ask those questions as a patient. That's something that they should be prepared with an answer for you. They should have an answer for you. And if they can't answer those questions, I would hold off on the surgery and maybe find another facility, because those are things that they have put into place and practices that they should be following just for these reasons right here. And you should be asking those questions. I would definitely encourage you to ask those questions. You are not wrong for doing it. Saw some congresswoman posted that she supposedly talked to some medic who said that there was a death quota, that nobody was coming to get tested, so they were testing the homeless. Basically, that all numbers are... Jesus freaking Christ. If you see that, Diana, please tag me in it and forward it to me. I would love to attack that one. We don't have a death quota. We need to test people to find out how many people have been infected so we can get a herd immunity number and the infection fatality rate, so we know how deadly this actually is. The R naught, which is the number that we're looking for in statistics, we need to know that number. That lets us know how infectious this really is within a population. I hope to God it wasn't ACO. I wonder what she has to say about these things, because that woman, I swear, I would love for it to be her. I can't believe people are still comparing this to the flu population diagnosis deficit. Man, I just, okay, I'll go back and look at it, Diane. I can't click on it right now while it's active, but I will definitely go back and look at it. And no one believes that we will have another spike. I went to several stores today just driving by, and I watched, Yep. Yes, good job reporting it for fake news. I'd love to see a congresswoman get taken off of Facebook for bullshit that isn't true. Oh my God, would I ever. That's just inciting fear. All that's doing is inciting fear and getting somebody to, getting her social group and the people that she's trying to influence with her opinion, spreading that misinformation. She's got motive behind that. That's not true. And I can't believe a paramedic would even say that. We have paramedics killing themselves because of the amount of death that they've seen out in New York. They just couldn't handle it. So somebody to make light of all of that and to downplay all of it is just, it's very, very, very disgusting. Had to get my car inspected. Not one mask, not one. Yeah, Jesus criminy. How would you talk to a friend that thinks all we need is a healthy immune system to beat this? Oh my gosh. I would have her look at the anti-vax people in Michigan whose kids were dying of the flu and things like measles, and they have all these great healthy immune systems and they're vegan and all these anti-vax movements, and then you see them come back with interviews after a near-death experience or losing a child to the flu or something, and they're like, I really wish I would have gotten those vaccines. I mean, those stories are there over and over again. Genetics has a lot to do with this, though, man. If you're not healthy and you are predisposed to oxidative stress and getting sick, your body can't fight back. So there's a lot to do with that, but it doesn't discriminate. There's totally healthy people getting sick with this who have healthy immune systems. And it's the immune response that's killing people. I mean, I would counter back with that. Say, hey, you do realize that the cytokine storm is your body's natural immune response, and that's what's killing people, right? That's what's causing the inflammation. So it kind of makes that an invalid argument. Oh, yeah, I need to get mine. Jeez, oh, Pete's. Yeah, when I get back, I actually have to have my car inspected here in Texas. And I got to figure out, I think I was going to drive home on my first trip back because I have so much shit and I'm tired of paying luggage fees and shipping stuff. So I was actually going to drive back when I go home because it's only 10 hours. And I'm like, my driver's license is expired. And it's from Michigan, and I don't want to renew my Michigan driver's license. I was waiting for it to expire to go get a Texas license, but how can I rent a car when my driver's license is expired? So now I'm going to have to renew my Michigan driver's license and still pay for a Texas one. Damn it. Screwed myself. My car's registered to Texas, though. But I wanted my Texas driver's license, but I have to take my marriage license in, and because my driver's license is in my maiden name. So I don't know what to do here. I don't know if I can file the paperwork online or what. I gotta look it up. But, guys, look at Psychology. Check out the headline. Once I post the video, you can go look at Psychology Today. And you can read I think it was Very Well Mind. But you can read about the basic human reactions. And you can look into these reactions further. But you can almost predict the way people are going to behave. And when you look at your timeline and then you look at this stuff, you can just be like, yep, so-and-so. Yep, so-and-so. I mean, if you want to label them with anything, you can label them with typical human behavior. Don't try to divide the country any further. Don't pick on somebody because they're Republican. Don't pick on somebody because they're Democrat. That doesn't make you right or them right. It makes you both wrong for trying to divide this further. Quit trying to divide it down party lines. You don't need to be put into a group to identify with. You don't need to label people. People don't need a fucking label. You have a name. Use it. And don't pick on each other. But there's a lot of similarities with this and the PTSD, and it just all relates to basic human behavior. It's human instinct. It's ingrained in us to behave this way. And it's up to us to control our reactions because it is ingrained in us to do this and have these emotional responses. It is up to us to make the changes in our behavior. So I am like really going to enjoy my first true thunderstorm and pray to God there's no damn tornadoes here. And I have a nice view of this, like overlooking the city. And it looks like it's pretty damn windy out there. So I get to enjoy heard you say COVID-19 has been found not to be, yeah, it's not a respiratory virus. It uses you are correct, Mary. It enters the body through the respiratory system. So it attacks the lungs, but what it does is it causes a state of oxidative stress. And what that does is it's attacking the endothelium in the blood vessels and in other vessels. So it's a stress issue. It's an oxidative stress issue. And if you go back on my earlier videos on the RT Says What page and even on my personal page, I explain it a lot deeper. But there's a few videos I've shared from Dr. Hansen, which are a great description. They're very short. You can look him up on YouTube. He's fairly credible, and he brings it down to an easier to understand level, and he shows pictures, and also he shows a lot of studies, so you can look him up. I subscribe to his YouTube videos because they're very condensed and easy to understand. But it enters through the respiratory system, and that's where it replicates. So it replicates like crazy, and then it goes viral. It goes throughout the body, and it attacks the endothelium, which is the lining in the blood vessels. And because of being predisposed with African Americans and Hispanics to heart conditions, that's where we're seeing the most problems with these people. And overweight. If you have a body mass index over 30, you are already in a state of oxidative stress. So it's an oxidative stress issue. It's not a flu virus like it would be, you know, a respiratory. You're full of mucus and coughing. Most of these people don't have mucus until we put a tube in them, or until they've been like really, really sick and their body goes into that cytokine storm. And then you can see on my RT Says What page, the mucus goober that I suctioned out of the one patient. They're everywhere, and it's blocking off the airways, but you can also see the tissue, the endothelium, because your lungs are filled with blood vessels. That's how you carry oxygen and get rid of your carbon dioxide. So it attacks the lungs as well because it's full of blood vessels. Why are you not hearing? Because all we do is talk about COVID-19. I did have several flu patients. I have had people that have had the flu and COVID both at the same time. Right before I left that last hospital, I had a lady who just had the flu. She was influenza A positive. And she had no signs of COVID. There wasn't a single sign. When I looked at her inflammatory markers, it's a state of inflammation with oxidative stress. It just, I mean, everything goes freaking haywire with this virus, and we do not see these inflammatory markers with the flu. We do not even close, not even nothing. We see the high D-dimer, which goes for the blood clotting. We have a lot of thick blood situations with these patients to the point where I can't even draw their blood to get their arterial blood gases anymore, which is why art lines need to be put in. But when there's only 3 that are kept in the hospital, I guess they're pretty restrictive on who gets them. Every patient who's on a ventilator should have one with COVID, so we can draw continuous blood samples from outside the room without having to go in there and stick the patient. But the flu season's over. Flu season runs from October to March 31st. We're now into almost June. So we don't have the flu going on because it's not the typical. I mean, that doesn't mean outside of these seasons that we don't see positive flu cases, but they're just not common. Now, come October, when the cold weather months start coming and the kids are going back to school and everybody's freaking out because their kid has to wear effing mask to school, and they're going to be getting, you know, the waivers from doctors and getting disability plans over not wearing a mask. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Not only will it prevent COVID from spreading, but you're also going to prevent a flu outbreak. That'd be great. Don't bring the flu home either. Because come October 1st, that's exactly what's going to start, is the flu is going to start picking up again. So it's not that it hasn't gone away. It's just not the season for it anymore. We don't see the outbreaks right now. I think I had this in Florida in December. I couldn't walk. Yeah. And usually it takes a good 45 days to like really recover fully from COVID. The flu, you're over it in 2 weeks and feeling better and finally getting back to yourself. Another reason on how this is not like the goddamn flu. Is it true that, yes, yes, Mary. They are finding COVID in the spinal fluid of autopsy patients. We are seeing encephalopathy issues and meningitis. I have said time and time again to these people, because I deal with a lot of neuro patients with a lot of brain injuries, and there's a particular breathing patterns that they have on the ventilator. And I kept looking at my vent and looking at these people going, this almost seems like a neurological issue with why we can't control the vent. Yeah, it was. The brain is inflamed. Yes, 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 yes. We are finding it in the spinal fluid. When I had talked to my former coworker, he wanted to die. He was so freaking depressed with this. Um, he couldn't figure out why he felt like that because it's not typical of him. Um, but yeah, we are finding it in the spinal fluid, and it is causing a meningitis type situation because it's an inflammatory process. So yeah, definitely, definitely. Sick for a month, yeah, it sounds very, very much like a COVID, and I would definitely be getting an antibody test just to see if you did have an exposure to it. It won't tell you if you were positive back then, but it will let you know if you were exposed or not. So, yep, school with a mask part-time. Yeah, I mean, they're going to start social distancing, and you know what's really going to be challenging is in these rural schools where they started to pack. Like, I would substitute teach in some of these classrooms, and there'd be like 35 children in one classroom for a teacher, which is already too freaking much for a teacher. Um, Trying to get 35 kindergartners to do anything together is like an act of God in itself, let alone wear a mask and socially distance. Oh my God. So it's going to be a real challenge in the fall. Class size is going to be a huge problem because you are going to need to space people out. They're going to keep kids from congregating in the cafeteria and spreading their boogers everywhere, which, great idea. Um, they're going to have to figure out school busing. These are all going to be challenges that we're facing. Now, in some areas, you don't have a school bus system. You have to figure out a way to get your kids to school yourself because there is no bus to come get them. So those of you who have a school bus to come get your kids out in the middle of nowhere, you're lucky because not everybody has that. Not every school district can afford to have that. So there are districts that you are responsible to get your own child to school. There is no public busing. So we're going to have a lot of challenges to face, and fighting and resisting all of this is not going to help matters. Try to come up with a solution. If you have a problem, bring about a solution to the problem. Instead of bitching about it and solving nothing, talk about it and propose something that could help. Brainstorm with other parents and come up with an idea. That's going to help solve problems. You complaining about it does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. All it does is aggravate you, the person you're trying to talk to and spread your message to. You need to be part of the solution and not part of the problem with this. I have seen so many people, can you believe this? Yes, I can. Because I have been a substitute teacher in a public school system. I did it for on and off for 8 years. And I enjoyed it thoroughly. But I do understand the complications that they are facing. And the lack of money, There's only so much we can do with nothing. Look at me at my other job. I mean, I couldn't do respiratory care without supplies. How are we supposed to do all this stuff and keep our kids safe with nothing? We need help. Be a solution. Got sick suddenly on March 2nd, 101.4 temp and chest cold symptoms, severe fatigue and chills, tremors, negative flu. 6 months later, negative COVID. Last week, negative antibodies, but still on the puffer. Recurrent fever throughout all this time. No answers. I don't know. How many COVID tests have you had? Would be one of my questions. And have you had any pulmonary function testing done? If you're still having shortness of breath. Recurrent fever throughout this time. Maybe rheumatic? Yeah, I think about the children getting sick, swollen feet. What they're seeing on that, Mary, we call it COVID toes in the adults. It looks like, and it's because of the oxidative stress issue within the blood vessels, it looks like frostbite. It's causing the inflammation in those tiny little capillaries at the end of the fingers, and it's causing them to pretty much burst or be a cut off from blood flow. So it kills the tissue, just like it would with frostbite, because when you get really cold, your blood vessels shrink and clamp down and you lose the circulation there. Well, the same thing is kind of happening with this. It's blocking the circulation because of the swelling, and those capillaries are so freaking tiny. I mean, you couldn't even, it's like they're flimsy. And that's where all your gas exchange takes place, on the AC membrane in your lungs. And they have to pass through these tiny capillaries. Well, when those capillaries become inflamed, it's just like with asthma, it's an inflammatory obstruction. So it gets inflamed from the inside and it blocks off the flow of air. Well, the same thing happens in the blood vessels. It blocks off the flow of the blood in those tiny little capillaries, and it kills off the tissue in the fingers and toes. One of the proposed concepts about why, and if you notice, these kids are only showing up in certain areas: Michigan, DC, New York. There's huge anti-vax movements there. They are finding a little bit of more than just a coincidence, and it does warrant a lot further research. And remember, research takes time. But in countries that have had a widespread push of the MMR vaccine for measles, mumps, and rubella, that rubella has like a 29% similarity with COVID. So they're finding that the people who have had this vaccine are not getting as sick or having such a widespread breakout. I think Hong Kong only had 4 deaths, and they're right next to China, or they're part of China. But because of what they believe, the relationship with the vaccines, and also with the tuberculosis vaccine, they've noticed that a lot of these countries that do the BCG vaccine standard, which we don't hear, they did not have a breakout like we did. And in New York, in Michigan in particular, we had a measles outbreak past few years. You can go back in the news and see measles, measles, measles. And we have a huge push for anti-vaxxers. In New York, it's really big, and everybody lives on top of each other. And look at where these kids are getting sick. So there's a lot of similarities there. It's very interesting, and they are going to have to further research it, but research takes time. You know, it's not fact, it's a theory, but science is full of hypotheses. We test them. If they fail, then we move on to the next hypothesis. But it's definitely something worth looking at, because most adults who are being affected are over the age of 65. Most of those people have never had an MMR vaccine because of when it was created. I think it was in the 1960s we began to really push for it in childhood. Not all of these folks have had it. Most of them probably have not, unless they actually went and got it at a suggestion of somebody else. So vaccines have a lot to do with this, but at least that vaccine has been tested for a long time. I will not go get a brand new COVID vaccine. I ain't going to do it. I'm not. It's brand new and it's not happening. But vaccines that have been around for a while that we know are relatively safe, and as I said, there's always a risk with anything that you're putting into your body, but does the benefit outweigh the risk? But these huge anti-vax movements, and then all of a sudden we're having outbreaks of children in areas where there's a huge anti-vax community. So does that have a factor in it? Could be. It would be very interesting. But the COVID toes and fingers that we're seeing on the kids, we also see on the adults. You can look at Dr. Hansen's videos and he will actually show pictures of it. But yeah, I mean, these are a lot of good questions, and I'm glad people are asking them. But that's what we're looking at with this, and that's why it's really important to stay distant from each other and just, man, help each other out, help be part of the solution. Don't antagonize the haters and the hoaxers and all that. The best you can do is educate, leave it there, but don't antagonize the situation, because all you're going to do is stress yourself out, and you don't need to be stressed out. You do not need high blood pressure. You don't need to get COVID and high blood pressure. Don't let other people upset you with words. Do not give them the power over you with that. And just recognize that this is just typical human behavior, and that they are responsible for their own behavior and reactions, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant. unfortunately, we have to deal with stupidity because Darwinism hasn't been allowed to happen anymore. We stop stupid people from doing stupid things, and when the government does stop stupid people from doing stupid things, all of a sudden we're infringing upon their freedoms and liberties. No, we're just trying to stop you from killing yourself and other people. But hey, great. But yes, please just recognize that the stupidity that we are seeing on Facebook is just, it's predictable. We know that these things will happen, and as people get used to the new normal, whatever normal that this decides to be, things will calm down. And 10 years from now, we might just be all wearing masks during cold and flu season to help prevent the spread of viruses, to be a little bit more social responsible. And the people will be like, oh, I can't believe I raised a fuss about this, and look at how many lives have been saved just by wearing masks from October till March. Oh my God, think about that. It might not be such a bad idea. People who don't get the flu vaccine at the hospital, as an employee, you have to wear a mask from October until March 31st. That's what you get if you don't get the vaccine. You have to wear a mask. So, they're not going to force people to go get a COVID vaccine. That's not going to happen. But if you're not going to get it, then you're going to wear a mask. It's one or the other. I mean, I would wear a mask. I mean, I've been doing it for months. You'll live, I promise you. But we don't know what the new norm is going to be. We can't be anxious about the future. We can't. Meditate. Meditate. There are plenty of great guided meditation apps out there. They are free. There are some that walk you step by step through over and over and over again until you get it. And one day, after practicing, you will get it. You will be able to calm yourself down without needing medication, without needing to be, it's just going to be a natural reaction to just remain calm in the face of frustration. But it's not something that you can just do twice and be like, it doesn't work. It does. Look at all the peaceful Buddhists. I'm ready to move with them where it's quiet and people socially distance from each other with no problem. But yeah, take it easy. Don't get too frustrated over the stupid things. If you see the stupid shit like that pacifier on the sucky, make sure to send it to me so I can put out a PSA about it, because, dear God, that's hazardous. And I appreciate somebody bringing that to my attention. Don't get too upset about the ignorance that you see. Just report it silently. When you report it, it doesn't let the person know that you reported it. It doesn't let them know that you're the one who did it. It just does it. And they go through it. If they find that it violates community standards, they'll remove it. And after the person is violated so much, then they get banned from their account and from being able to post stupid shit. So it solves itself. And then you don't have to be the bad guy and feel like you singled out somebody. So there's always that option to just silently scroll past, report it, and move on, and try to fill your feed with happy things. And scientific stuff. Find scientific stuff. Read good things. Read helpful things. Read things that don't scare the crap out of you and create paranoia. That does not help the brain with anxiety at all. So try to practice those things and socially distance yourself from those people on Facebook as well, because they are toxic human beings to your life. It is okay to get rid of toxic people. Take out the trash. I have deleted so many people from my Facebook. It is okay. I have deleted people from my life. I wish it was that easy as I could just make them go away in real life as I could on Facebook with just a little push of a button. But just turn around, walk away. Don't react. It's not worth it. You guys have a good night. I'm going to go step outside and feel the air, and then I'm going to tackle the layers and masks on Adobe and see how this goes. Wish me luck.